friends. Welcome. My name is Nikki Loney from Full Voice Music. I am so excited. This is our live office hours. Once a month, we have a topic, a vocal pedagogy topic, and we answer questions and we have lots of discussion. Today is all about full voice resources, how to use them, how to pace them, how to choose the right ones. What can you do for your older students? What can you do for your younger students? Everybody has sent in fabulous questions, and I'm happy to dive into those today. So I've got, and there was quite a few questions about licensing. We're going to talk about that as well. So with our presentation today, not only will I be sharing some of our resources, but we're going to answer other individual questions. So please stick around. And I do have to tell everybody, like, if you haven't been to our live office hours before, we have prizes at the end. So you got to stay to the end to get your prizes. So, and this is about a 45-minute presentation with lots of fun. So full voice workbooks, I want to start off with some of the research and development. I promise I won't bore you. This actually ties in to a lot of the answers of your questions coming in. So I want to start by just saying that when it comes to lesson pacing and the curriculum and everything, it would be an understatement to say that Mim and I have not done our due diligence. So this little ragged book here was the test books that we started using with our teenagers, our young teenagers, back in 2003. We were frustrated with the lack of resources for young singers and how it was really difficult to show progress and teach them the foundational skills, including theory and ear training and music reading. So we put together a collection of worksheets that we had done. And the original testing was for teenagers. I wasn't working with littles in the beginning. I was working with middle school and up. So we tested our pages for about 2.5, 3 years. And then after ripping those books apart, we had first edition workbooks. So if you were in Canada, you might have seen these. They came with the coil binding, and they were designed on Word Perfect. Yeah, that's right. And looking back at these, like there's a lot of the foundations there here, but it took us a couple of years to realize that this book moved far too quickly for a lot of our younger singers. So we actually went back and we kind of ripped them apart and started to incorporate and test better pacing with the materials. It just moved too quickly. So after a couple of years of using these, and we had many teachers in our test groups and our focus groups. We had choral directors, we had classroom teachers, but we had a lot of private teachers. Essentially, this was developed for private teachers, and we got a lot of feedback, tons of feedback. So we then put together the second edition books, which came with a handy little theory book, because we thought, it's so hard for the kids to get all the theory in the lesson. We'll make these little additional books so that they can take it home and do it for homework. So these were the second edition books. Now, we were addressing the concerns for people working with younger students in this second edition. And we thought that this theory book would be a good idea, but this just turned into keep busy work, and children would either lose these books or never complete the books, or they'd go home and they'd never come back. So, and it was costly to print the two books up. So we went back to the drawing board, we collected all that feedback. Now, nobody has seen these because they never made the light of day. We started working with, we were considering partnering with another publisher. We started working on it. And we thought that we would do full voice for kids, which is it's a 9x11 size. And the biggest thing that teachers are like, we need more homework assignments. We need to have activities that they can do at home. How can we get kids to practice at home? So we ripped apart the books and we included we called them AHAs, at home activities. Oh, so clever. And we started testing these, and we hated them. And our students hated them. And our students didn't like the homework, and they never did the homework. Or they did the homework in the car on the way to their lessons. You could tell by the way the printing was. I'm sure all of you have seen that, yes? So this was a very dark time. We had put in 2 years of work, and we scrapped it because the kids weren't doing the work. They weren't enjoying the work. Parents weren't enjoying trying to police their children to do the work at home. And we really just didn't think that the lesson pacing was appropriate, and it wasn't solving the problems. So we scrapped, and this was a dark, there was a lot of crying, just so you know. Mim's laughing now. She's laughing now, but we weren't laughing back then. And then, as many of you know, I don't even know if I have, I must have one. Where's the full voice books? The 3rd edition books came out in 2014, was it? I think. Yeah, 2014. So Mim and I went back to the drawing board. We took all of our research. We took all of the feedback from parents, from teachers, from students, and we released the 3rd edition workbooks. The majority of editing and feedback really had to do with lesson pacing. And I'm so glad that people are asking that question. How do I pace a lesson? How do I pace a lesson? So I want to dive into that today, because that was probably the biggest question that we got from people, is how do I choose the right level and how do I pace with these books? So I'm going to go back to my screen here. And let's start with a common question that we get. Let's address like the elephant in the room. One of the challenges with voice students, which I think is different from other instruments, is that you could have students at very different ages with varying abilities. You can have 6-year-olds that are reading and writing and have really good pitch and can learn by rote. And you can have a 10-year-old that is developing pitch accuracy, has not taken any music before, is not reading music. You can have a teenager that is an early beginner. They're just getting started. It's really challenging in our studios as a private teacher to identify the needs of each individual until we've kind of worked with them and gotten to know them really well. It can be hard. It can be hard to choose repertoire. It can be hard to find the right books. So hopefully this information today is going to help to solidify that. So if you are getting started with the full voice workbooks, here are some guidelines. If you have students ages 10 and under, I would always start with the introductory level workbook. The youngest I would do in my studio, in my experience, is about 6. And the determining factor is they have to be able to print their name, to write simple letters like do, re, mi. They have to be confident enough to draw some notes on some lines. That would determine if I would start them in this workbook. If you have a 6-year-old that is just starting to print and just starting to write, I would wait before starting this. Now for the level 1, if I have a student that's over 10, maybe they have some piano experience, maybe they've done some singing and music at school, I would start them in level 1. If I have a teenager, absolutely start them at level 1. Yes, you can use these with teenagers. Like I said, our initial tests were all with middle school and teenage students. We actually have community colleges that purchase our level 1 workbook to use with beginner adults, and they have a learn to sing class, and they use our curriculum for that with adults. I know that the images on the cover might not necessarily be the best for that. Down the roads at some time, don't ask me when, we will create an older beginner level, which is an amalgamation of books 1 and 2 with a better cover. That's not happening anytime soon. We'll get to it as soon as we can. But If you are starting with an older beginner, level 1 would be the place to start. There is an enormous amount of review of all of the concepts introduced in the introductory level in level 1. And a lot of teachers ask me that. Why is there so much? Like, we already did this stuff. Yes, but I guarantee that your students have not mastered it. And review is so helpful for both the student and teachers to see where that student is, where the holes are in their understanding. Foundational skills in anything, but in music especially, are not mastered in the first year or two of taking lessons. It takes a long time. So if you are deciding which ones to choose, that's kind of my guideline. And one of the mistakes I've made in the past, I don't do it anymore. I do not start anyone, no matter how old they are, in a level 2. I always have found that there is holes in their understanding. And if you have somebody that has extensive like instrumental music, it's important to understand that sight singing and sight playing are two very different skills. So you may need the time to review some of the basics, even with a student that is playing piano, violin, or another instrument. So please don't feel that you need to jump them ahead. You can pace the books quicker if they are older and more experienced, but I would not start with a book 2. I've made that mistake too many times. Now, when it comes to pacing, I want to really start here. So many people ask about pacing, and I'm glad that you're asking about pacing because pacing is everything when it comes to teaching. How we structure our lessons and how much time we give our students to explore the information that we're giving really sets them up for success. So here is an example of the flexible pacing that we wanted in the workbooks. So knowing that pacing is individualized, every student is different. If you have a young student, definitely going to have a slower lesson pacing. So here's a 2-page spread. Now I want to remind everybody that just because one full voice lesson is 2 pages, that does not mean you need to complete that in one lesson. In fact, what you're looking at right here, so we've got a warm-up of singing staccato, we've got a sight singing, 2 little mini sight singing activities, we've got some interval ear training work, and a bit of review with writing some dotted notes. That is a massive amount of information. I could not get through that in a half-hour or 45-minute lesson, not without rushing. And I don't recommend that you ever send this home for homework. This is new information, and I think it needs to be done in the lesson. Now, if you look at the layout of our books, you'll notice that we have little sections. So you can see that there's a singing staccato and a sight singing section. I always recommend that you just maybe do 1 or 2 sections. So if I was doing this lesson, if I opened up and I'm online, so if my student Asha, who's working in level 1, popped into the Zoom room and we were working on level 12, we would use this staccato exercise as the warm-up. I would ask her to explore singing staccato. We might do a little bit of writing of the staccato dots, and then I'm going to leave it. And I'm going to move into her repertoire, but I'm going to try and connect what we learned in the workbook to her repertoire. So I'm going to ask her, can you identify anywhere in this song where Taylor Swift would be singing staccato? And we're going to look at Taylor Swift or whatever she's singing. We're going to look at the phrasing of what she's singing. And Taylor Swift sings a lot of staccato lines, by the way. And then we're going to try and put it together and make that connection with her repertoire. And then we might talk about her technique, how, I might focus on onset. So how the singer's singing the staccato and the different options for singing staccato. So instead of rushing through all of these concepts in one lesson, I'm going to take one of the concepts, we're going to explore it, we're going to take our time, and then we're going to bring it into her repertoire. We're going to use it. So I think it's helpful to remember that workbook work is surface learning. We're just kind of getting ideas in our mind about something. The deeper learning goes when we put it together with other things that they're doing in their lesson, repertoire, right? I might ask a student, because I like to do, my studio is student-led. We're talking about student-led. I might say to my student, what's your favorite exercise? And let's try it staccato. So instead of doing the exercise that's written there, I might ask them to choose their favorite. Oh, you like to do an arpeggio? Cool, let's do it staccato. Let's do it staccato ascending, legato descending. Let's play around with it. So workbooks are surface learning. And again, if we send it home for homework, two things are going to happen. They're not going to do it, or they're going to do it so quickly that there's a lot of mistakes, right? Or, well, and then they'll do it, and they'll do it with lots of mistakes, and then you'll have to spend the most of the lesson fixing their mistakes. So you've just taken up more lesson time than you wanted to. So lesson pacing with workbooks and these activities really is to the individual, taking your time and taking the fragments of the book, like the exercises, so a quarter of a lesson here, and then moving into their repertoire. Now, the beautiful thing about workbooks that I love is if I have a student that's maybe got to rest their voice, maybe they're getting over a cold, then maybe we would spend more time. Maybe we would go through the whole thing. Maybe we would do the sight singing and do the rhythm part of it. Maybe we would focus more on ear training. So you can be flexible with the pacing, and please, 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 this is one of the best things I ever learned, and a very good reminder to all of us. Your ability as a teacher has nothing to do with how quickly your students progress and work through books. This comment, this very important teaching tip came from Dr. Randall Faber of the Faber and Faber Piano Adventures. The piano creators of those children's piano methods would like you to slow down too. That whole thing where you do 2 songs in a lesson, that's a lot of information, especially for young little humans. And we have a tendency to want to go one and done. And Dr. Randall Faber talked about this in his presentations. And I was like, it just took the weight of the world off my shoulders, right? Because we think that the more our students do, or the faster they get through a curriculum, then we must be amazing human beings. Let them do the work in the lesson. Lesson pacing, not lesson racing. That's Nikki's phrase. I think Dr. Randall Faber had a better, more elegant way of saying it, but please take your time. Please take your time. There's no need to rush. Does anybody, and I'm going to get you to put it in the chat, does anybody have any specific questions about the workbooks that they want? You can put it in the chat, or you can ask online. Mim, you're minding the chat there. I have a tendency when I'm doing presentations, I don't see the chat. So apologies if I miss your question. All right. And we're happy to answer questions at the end as well. So I want to move into the songs and studies for kids books. So I'm going to share my screen again. So there was a really great question about the songs and studies for kids. So some of you may have a copy of the vocal studies for kids. This was a digital download. And we released this during the pandemic. So Donna Rodeneiser and the team from Full Voice, we were working on the songs and studies for kids books. We wanted to address the littles. So the students who might not quite be ready for the introductory workbook, but we wanted to give them materials to help them develop those singing skills. So we were working on the Songs and Studies for Kids, and it was like 2019, and we were looking at a summer 2020 release. And then we all know what happened in March 2020. The pandemic moved us all online, and we were all, myself included, Mim as well, we were all overnight transitioning into online lessons. And I have to tell a little story. So it was March break for my students, and the news was getting a little dark about the virus and everything. And I casually said to my students, I said, if anything happens, we can always do an online lesson. They're not that bad. And I'm so glad I said that, because when we had to go online, a lot of my parents were like, oh, well, you said you had done online lessons. And I was like, yeah, I did 1 or 2, sure, it'll be fine. So we needed to transition our resources because my students weren't coming to my studio. So I talked to Donna Rodenizer, had a panic phone call with her, and I was like, all of my friends and colleagues and myself now have to teach online. Can we take what we've got so far with the Songs and Studies, can we turn it into an online resource? So we basically took what we had, we created backing tracks, we put this together as a download. So if you started with this, you might be wondering, wait a second, why are there new ones and what's going on? So this was for the pandemic. It was primarily an online teaching resource. Once we survived the pandemic and we all leveled up and we're all now masters of teaching online and in person, hooray for us, and you keep on your savvy selves there. My studio became a full-time online studio after the pandemic. So, and a lot of teachers have moved to what is called a hybrid type of teaching studio where they offer both. And one of the beautiful things, especially for those of us in Canada, you can't have people cancel for snowstorms. You just have an online lesson. So there's no excuses anymore, right? So we continued working on these. Excuse me. We continued working on these and we continued testing them. We tested them with our online students, and when people went back to in-person, we continued to test them. So now they have graduated into Songs and Studies for Kids series. This was our original plan from the beginning. We just had a little detour with the pandemic. So there are Songs and Studies for Kids in print book, if you're teaching in person and you would like your students to have their own copy of the book. We have a PDF download of this, which allows teachers who are teaching online to screen share. You can also make copies of a PDF download. And we have backing tracks that you can purchase separately. They include piano tracks. They include melody guides to help our little ones learn their melody, and they include some pretty sweet band tracks for lots of fun and performances. So with the Songs and Studies for Kids, we now have 2 books. We have the Introductory A and Introductory B. So a lot of people are asking about lesson pacing with these books. So these are not like a piano book where you go page after page after page. I would start maybe with the first couple of solfege studies to see where your students are at. The only prerequisite for your littles is that they know some do, re, mi's, and the hand signs. And if you're a teacher that did not grow up or was not using that system, you can learn alongside. It's so simple, and you're going to go super slow. So the prerequisite for these books for Introductory A would be students from 6, 5, maybe 6, depending on the maturity level of the student, to maybe 8 years old. They were developed specifically for our littles. Please don't put a 10-year-old in here. They're not going to enjoy it. It's not going to be cool for them. This is for your littles. Now, Introductory A was specifically developed for young singers who are developing pitch accuracy. These are the little ones, and I'm going to get on my soapbox. These are the little ones that are often turned away from lessons because they need help. What? That's my dog. This makes her so angry when people turn them away. Hang on 1 second. She's probably barking at a squirrel. So this was developed for those very young singers that just need a slower pace. They need shorter studies that are easy for them to have quick wins. So if you're a piano teacher, I want to ask you a question. If you're working with a beginner piano student, a young beginner piano student, and you popped a piece of music in front of them that was 2 pages long, how would that go down? Yeah, thank you, Freddie. Freddie's like, no, right? There would be crying. Everybody's like, yes, there would. We do that with our little singers. Part of your world is like 8 pages long. That's a marathon. So in this book, we broke things down into very small, easy to learn, fun to sing activities. And I want to say there's still a ton of information. So if you're thinking that you're going to do one solfege study every week, way too fast. That pacing is way too fast. You're going to explore. My recommendation and what I usually do is I explore one solfege study. I get them thinking about it. And then I might start to introduce one of the songs. And I'm just going to take my time. It could take up to a month for a little one to get really comfortable with the lyrics, with the rhythms, with the pitches, and most of the work in the beginning lessons are going to be voice to voice. This is not a sit at the piano and play the accompaniment and hope that they jump in and follow you. We need to do the vocal work first, and then when they're ready, we can get excited and play those piano parts for them. I know, my friends, I know you want to play those piano parts. I know you want to just get them going. Here's a really great tip. Cognitive processing time. The younger the child, the more cognitive processing time they need. So if you are working through something and they can only give you fragments, like maybe you're playing the piano and they can only sing a line and then they have to stop for a little bit and then they jump in a little bit later, you are going far too fast. They need more time to sing either unaccompanied, to do a phrase by phrase introduction of it. So they need that time to think things through. So again, if you're hearing them sing and then stop and then sing then stop, they are telling you that you are going too fast. So that's just a really good, that mindful thing. And a lot of teachers think, well, I'll just sing along and I'll keep playing and they'll hop in. I'm like, maybe they will, but they're not going to be able to take any of that home and work on it. So there's just a little tip. Now, Introductory B is also for the young ones, 6 to 8. So the songs are a little more complex. So in Introductory A, the songs are a repeated A section. And this is to aid in easier memorization of lyrics. There's more repeated lyrics. There's more repeated melodies. In Introductory B, we have more ABA type form songs. They're a little more challenging. And I know for you advanced teachers here, an ABA song is certainly not a challenge to you, but to a little one, it is a marathon. So again, take your time. Now, there were quite a few questions about songs and studies. So if you're here in the Zoom room and you would like to ask, you can put it in the chat if you would like. Oh, Katrin, hello, you're here. So if there's any other questions, or you can ask live if you would like to do that. We're happy to have you come and talk. Everybody's all quiet. You're all having your lunch. It's Monday, I know. All right, if something comes up, pop it in the chat, or you can wait till the end. I'm happy to answer any questions. So, all right, how are we doing for time? Okay, I do want to move on, and I'm just going to screen share it. There were quite a few questions about licensing. And thank you for asking those questions. Licensing and copyright laws and all of that is a wickedly confusing mess. And I want to tell everybody that we have a publishing / copyright lawyer. We love her. Her name is Cheryl. Cheryl, often when we have questions about licensing and copyright, she has to go talk to 20 of her colleagues to gather enough information to be able to advise us. And she will tell you how confusing copyright is. Oh, Haley said, I'm trying to remember, are the backing tracks for songs and studies? Are there backing tracks for songs? Yes. Yes, Haley, there are. The backing tracks, they're purchased separately. And again, I'm going to explain that in this thing about licensing. But yes, you totally have backing tracks. And for the record, I just want to tell people, there is no shame in using backing tracks. In fact, I insist you use them in your lessons because your kids are going to have to use the tracks at home. So a lot of my colleagues who are phenomenal accompanists, I am not. I am a functional accompanist. I barely get by. I make Mim play all of the accompaniments, by the way, and I would hire Mim to play for my recitals because I get too nervous for my students, but also functional. Please don't hesitate to use backing tracks. Your students need to use the backing tracks at home, and you might be surprised that they might be having trouble with the backing track, because when you're playing for them, you can kind of slow things down and follow them. So do not hesitate to use the tracks in the lesson. Your students are going to need to practice with those at home. You might as well get them started in your studio. So great question. Thank you, Haley. So I'm going to move into licensing because a lot of people had questions. Licensing is confusing. So just to simplify it, licensing gives us permission to use things that don't belong to us. So software, or in our case, music. And a licensing agreement sets out the terms and conditions for how you can use it, how long you can use it, where you can use it, where you can't use it, and if there's any fees involved. So think of it as an invisible legal agreement that basically outlines what you can do with somebody else's educational art. That's what I like to call our resources. That's what licensing is. Copyright and licensing is set up to make sure that the creators of this, whether it's music, whether it's software, are remunerated, are paid for their time and their effort. So, and I would like to say that I am super proud. We pay living wages to our composers. We make sure that our composers, our contributors are taken care of. So when you go to our website and you want to download a song, you'll be asked to choose a license. If you are a private teacher working one-on-one or with small group classes, you would choose a studio license. And if you are working with 30 or more humans, you would get a classroom or a choral license. And the only difference is that you pay a bit more if you're going to use the product more. So a classroom teacher is probably going to make about 25, 30 copies, or a choral director is going to be using it more. So those are, for our song downloads, that's what our licenses are for. It's so that we can remunerate the people that make the music for us. I do want to say that with the license for full voice downloads, where's my downloads? When you purchase a song download, it is now part of your studio library. And you can use it, meaning you can make copies for your students forever. There's no timeline end on our licensing. So when I start planning for my season, I go to my song download library, I look through it, I look at my class list, or I look at the ages, and I start to think about what songs I'd like to use. And the beautiful thing is, if it's in my song library, I don't have to ask parents to buy anything. I don't have to ask parents, and I wouldn't ask parents to make copies. I would do that for my students. Anytime you can simplify the process for families, you are going to be their best friend. So I would then choose the materials that I want to use and make the copies that I need. Now, when I was teaching in person, my small group class, which I had 6 kiddos, I would always choose a few songs at the beginning of the term. I would make copies for them. They would each get their folder with their materials, and I would keep most of the materials in the classroom because they would never remember to bring it back. But when I moved online, I would, at the beginning of the year, talk to my students, talk about their goals, pick a couple of songs, print them off, and I would send them to them. I would mail the package, the lesson package, to my students. Now, none of that came out of my pocket. All of the expenses to do that was in the parents' tuition fees, the students' tuition fees. So when you are planning your curriculums, your classes, your studio, factor in the resources that you want to use, and then that gets put into the cost of tuition, and it's covered. So you should never, ever be out of pocket for any of the expenses for music. It really should be covered in your tuition structure. So does anybody have any questions about licensing and permissions and stuff? And again, I'm happy to answer questions later on if anybody, I'm looking in the chat here. So licensing, I mean, our goal essentially is to make it easy for teachers. I have lived the drama that is repertoire for over 30 years. I have harassed parents to buy expensive books where we only used 1 or 2 songs in said book. I have had students buy books and then lose books. I have loaned out books, never to see them again. Who's done that? Who's loaned out a book, never to see? Yeah, you're all, I know, right? So repertoire, and the other issue too is sometimes parents don't understand copyright, right? So trying to explain to them why they have to pay for all this stuff. I've had parents say, well, can't you just photocopy it for me? And you go, well, legally, no, I can't. So I find that the goal of our downloads is to really keep things simple for teachers and for students. And I have to tell you, some of the favorite downloads that I've used, Donna has You and I is one I've used probably a dozen times. Zombie Cat is every Halloween. Kids love that one. I've probably used it 50 times. And Glyn, any of Glyn's music, I've used probably, I've made oodles. So again, once it's in your library, you can use it again and again and again. Now, the other question that a lot of people had is, what resources do you have for older students? Great question. Well, like I said before, you can totally use the workbooks with your high school students and your adult students. Ask them to be generous with the cover. Doesn't necessarily reflect the level that they're at, but yes, you can use this for older students. If you're looking for visual help with technical exercises, there are quite a few pages in the vocal warm-ups and technical exercises that are meant for your older students. So my older students doing like grade 4, 5, 6 examinations had to learn minor scales. So we created these pages to make it more visual. So there's a lot of pages in our books that aren't meant for kids. So I would never torture a child with the harmonic minor scale. like ever. Please don't do that. So kids, let's learn some minor scales today. No. So there's lots of pages in there that are super helpful. One of our favorite resources is Oh Christmas Tree. This is for middle school, high school, and adult. I would not use this with my littles. It is meant for intermediate to advanced students. It actually dives into vocal ornamentation, learning how to put little riffs on things. It starts with beginner improvisation, so changing the rhythms and the melodies to make a song their own. There are songs with 2, 3, and actually I think there's a 4-part in there, isn't there, Mim? Yeah, so there's like 2, 3, 4-part choral pieces in there. Mim has one of the jazziest, funkiest versions of a 3-part Oh Christmas Tree with a band track. So much fun. I had all my teenagers do that at the Christmas recital, total hit. And this book, you could probably use it from November right into December. Your lesson planning is done for you. You are welcome. It's available printed. It's available as a download, and the backing tracks are separate. So if you need backing tracks, you can get them. The other one that I would highly recommend for your middle school and high school, and good news, it's on sale right now. You have to use the coupon code JazzyFun, is our introductory vocal jazz. So fun fact, the entire team at Full Voice, we're all jazz majors. Yeah, we all went to school for jazz. So we have been dying for 20 years to finally get our jazz stuff out. But we knew that in order to do the jazz stuff, the kids had to have at least basic theory understanding. So we spent 20 years creating the workbooks, and now we feel that y'all are ready to get into the jazz. So introductory vocal jazz, and by the way, I don't say this enough. Oh, Catherine's in my youth class, love those, fabulous. I don't say this enough. Mim Adams is a freaking genius when it comes to arranging and writing little vocal studies. I could sing her stuff all freaking day. They're fun, they're catchy. So if you are introducing jazz music to your middle school, high school, or even beginner adults, we tested all of this stuff with teens and adults. And these are lots of fun. Plus, we hired the best jazz musicians on the face of the planet, at least in Canada, to play on this. So it's a live backing track. It's a live band. So if you're working with middle school teenagers, you want to get into jazz, introductory vocal jazz, 7th chord song studies, we will be doing more download packages for jazz with different themes. So there's coming up. If you are introducing harmony singing, the 4 Seasons Harmony Studies by Glynn is a beautiful package of different types of harmony singing. I wouldn't do this specifically with the littles. I did do the canon, which is summer somersaults. I did it with my small group class, and they were like 8, 9. It was kind of tricky for them. We had to go really slow. I would say middle school and high school would do much better with this level. It has an echo song. It has a 2-part singing and harmony song, a canon, and a really funky little partner song called Winter Woolies. Is it Winter Woolies? I think it is. Yeah. Awesome, catchy little songs, and you're teaching harmony singing skills. Middle school, high school, for sure. I also would like to recommend that you go to our free resources page. The Sing and Swing, also by Mim, is a free download. Jazzy fun, it's got a backing track, great way to introduce some jazz. And there's also lots of, again, I would use with middle school. So our lyric discovery sheets, I would do this more with my middle school, high school. And I developed these during the pandemic to help my kiddos online to really get into the songs. I would also use the hot chocolate song. So any of those short little studies, the sushi song warm up, hot chocolate song, you can level those up to make them incredibly challenging for your older students. So the hot chocolate song for my little kiddos, I would just teach them the song and it would be a great warm up. For my teenagers, I make them snap on 2 and 4 while they sing it, and I ask them to change the melody and improvise on it. So you got to sing it 3 times. You can't sing it the same way. So you can take any simple little melody, a canon, a round, a simple folk song, and turn it into a challenging study for an older student. I love doing that. All right. Oh my goodness. 151. Mim, you're supposed to stop me because I ramble on forever. We are going to do our draws for prizes, but in the meantime, while I'm going to let Mim take over. She's going to tell how you put your name in for the draws. And then I will happily answer any questions while Mim's getting set up. So Mim, I'm going to let you take over and tell everybody how they can win the prizes.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste a link into the chat, and it's going to take you to a little Google form where you just type in your name. Now, your name is going to be visible on our video, so type something you want people to see, like, first name and a last initial is a good recommendation. And only enter your name once, please. And then we'll put them in the wheel of names and spin the wheel, and it's going to be exciting.
So while Mim is putting everybody's names into the thing, I do want to say, if anybody has any other questions, I'm just going to look quickly at some of the questions. Do you plan to do another Christmas book? I adore Oh Christmas Tree. To all our friends, we have so many plans. We have so many projects. We're just a small, tiny team working as hard as we can. So yes, we have lots of new things coming up. We're working on a new book with Ginevra Williams. We have more songbooks. The Songs and Studies Level 1 should be coming out this year. I say should. So yes, we've got lots of plans for lots of things. So and we love when people have suggestions. So if you've got ideas, send them to us. We have a database where we store all ideas and stuff. Now somebody said, how do you get shy little singers to sing in front of you? That's a little outside of the scope, but I do want to address that. Our shy little singers need so much patience and kindness. When you're working with shy singers, fun games, play-based learning, and making it student-led where you give them choices. So when you give a little one a choice to what they want to do, that gives them some agency and it helps to build their confidence. The other thing I like to remind teachers with little shy ones is to always give them like small wins, like make sure you break things into small activities so that they don't get overwhelmed. With really shy ones, I've done things like sitting on the floor with them where they might feel more grounded and just singing back and forth on the floor. And just being mindful of how you set them up in your room. Make sure they're comfortable. If they would rather sit, let them sit, those kind of things. Just so you know, we are going to be drawing for a couple of different things. And if you win a prize and you already have it, then we'll swap it for something that you don't. So we are giving away digital copies of Songs and Studies for kids. You can choose A or B. This is the $90 digital copy, which has the licensing to make 1 million copies for your students. So that is one of them. And then I think if you already had that, we would swap it out for Oh Christmas Tree, the digital version of Oh Christmas Tree. So that was on there. And I don't know if there was another one that we're drawing for. Can't remember. Is there any other questions that I can answer, whether about any of our resources or songs, the Songs and Studies for kids? Any other questions? You can put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand, and we'll get you on the screen. No questions? Did I answer everybody's questions? That never happens. Ooh, Does anybody wonder why we never put repertoire in the workbooks? Anyone? Oh, I see some people going, wait. So that's probably, oh, we did it. Okay, I'm just going to
sorry, everyone.
I'm just going to finish this. The reason that we never put repertoire in the workbooks, we originally thought that we would, but the truth of the matter is that repertoire for a singer is so personal, and we have so many factors that we have to take into consideration that we would never tell a teacher that this is what you should sing. There's just so many considerations. So we think the only person that can probably choose the best repertoire is the teacher that is in the room who knows the student best, which is why we developed our library separate of our workbooks, because if you get a song that student loves, that they can connect to, teaching them is a joy. If you're forcing them to sing a song that they don't relate to, you're gonna get what you get, which isn't going to be engagement or enjoyment. So we will never force anyone to sing a song in any of our books. All right, I think we're there. Elizabeth, so much feedback today. Yay, cool, I'm so glad. All right, Mem, are we ready? So what are we drawing for first?
We are drawing for, well, it's the choice of one of the 3 books, right?
Okay.
There we go. Oh, I do have Joyce twice. Okay, I see that.
Joyce, almost got in there twice.
Almost. Okay, here's the first spin, everybody. Woo!
Woo! Catherine! Yay! All right, Catherine, just let us know which book you would prefer. Songs and Studies Introductory A, Introductory B, or the Oh Christmas Tree for your intermediate and teen students. So just let us know, and you can send a private message if you would like, or just put it in the chat. Congratulations, yay! All right, now we got to remove you because that would be cheating.
All right, number 2, are we ready? Woo!
All right, congrats, Julie. You can let us know which digital copy you would like. You know what, Mim? Let's do one more.
Oh my gosh, okay.
I'm feeling generous. Here we go. Woo! Did you okay, here we go. One more spin.
Okay, here we go.
Roxy! Yay! Fabulous. All right, friends, that's okay. So to our winners, congratulations. Send us a message in the chat to which one you would like. If you're not sure and you want to go look at them and just check them out first. Yeah, Catherine's like, please don't make me choose right now. If you want, I'm gonna put my email in the chat here. There we go. You're going to send a message. Oops. I just blew up my computer. You send me an email and just let me know what you would like. And you can take your time. You can look at them. You can decide what's best for your studio. So Nikki at Full Voice Music. You are so welcome. So friends, I want to thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for the work that you do with your students. It is so important. The creating and maintaining safe spaces for your students to discover their voices isn't just an advocational singing thing. It's life skills that you are helping people develop. And our goal here, Julie Vargas, she's driving. Oh my gosh. Don't drive into anything, Julie. Just email me when you get home. Oh my goodness. So again, friends, thank you for the work you do. Creating safe spaces or safer spaces for your students to just explore their voices sets them up for success throughout life. And I know that people might not realize the work that we do and how important it is, but we do at Full Voice Music. So we are here in your corner, supporting you, and creating resources that make teaching easier. That's our goal. So I'm going to wish everybody a fabulous afternoon. Thank you so much for coming. It's Monday, and I hope you have an inspired week of teaching. And Haley, you are so welcome. Thank you. And we adore all of you. And I'm just wishing you an amazing recital season. Oh my goodness. And thank you, everyone. So I'm going to say goodbye, and we'll see you. Oh, next month, you're all on the mailing list. So next month, are we doing the office hours about Jasmine?
I think that's the plan. Ooh,
all right, so the
jazz
jazz.
time.
So if you take advantage of the jazz download, our next office hours is going to take you deep and dark into jazz land. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.